Hello, coders. Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. It's 7:02 a.m. in the GMT time zone. Hope you're all well. So today we are going to be working on the PHP design patterns course, and we're going to build a new design pattern. So as I've been doing this in the last few weeks, what we have been doing is tidying up this course and making the files, the structure or the folder structures a little bit tighter, and also fixing some bugs here and there, doing some testing. Today I want to just create another design pattern, and today we're going to be dealing with the specification pattern. Before I start though, I just want to apologize to everybody in the Discord server because I didn't realize, I thought the Me6 box was down. And therefore I've gone and sent everybody an invite, a notification to say that I'm live, and then Me6 did it as well. So it was just taking a bit of a longer time than normal to put that onto the live coding channel. Anyway, enough of that. So specification. I'm going to put my hands up first of all and say I've never in my whole programming career seen this pattern out in the wild. Now that's not to say that it's not used. It's just that I've never seen it, and it's possibly because the things that I've been working on in my programming career haven't warranted the need for it. I can see it being used in the financial sector. I can see it being used where there's some really tight, well-defined specifications. But what I'm doing, blog sites, WordPress, e-commerce sites, doesn't really need it. I don't think. So what is the specification pattern? Hello, Tyrannid. Hope you're well. Let me move this over here. So the specification pattern, it's a way of encapsulating business rules, and you can combine them together in a chain. So you can chain them together, I really like the pattern. On paper, I actually like the look of it because it forces you down the road of single responsibility, because each of these business rules should be checking for one thing. Just reading through the notes here, you end up with sort of a collection of specifications. So you define your specification, and then you can group these specifications together in sort of a collection. And each of these specifications has a rule that needs to be satisfied. And essentially what's happening is this specification returns a Boolean, so true or false. But it's a great way if you've got lots of specifications and they all interact with each other. A good example of where this could be used is if you have a messy amount of if statements, lots of jumbled if statements, and you can't easily see the specification that you're having to try and adhere to. If you're just running all of these crazy messy if and else if, or switch statements or what have you. So this is a nice way of sort of compartmentalizing each one of these business rules. So we're gonna start through this. Excuse me. And I was thinking about this last night as to, how do I demonstrate? Let's go back to this view. How do I demonstrate this? How do I demonstrate the specification pattern? How do I demonstrate that this will build a clear set of business rules where objects can be thrown at it and checked against those rules? What is it that I could do? And I could make something crazy up. But then I thought, well, last stream we were talking about the howtocodewell.net website, and the potential for that having a courses section where people can log in and get my courses either through purchasing them on a one-off thing or through a sort of a subscription sort of base type thing. That's all well and good, But then you've got the other bits and pieces, the other things around how to code well as well, which I would like to incorporate. For example, we have Twitch subscribers, we have Patreons, and what I would like to do eventually is compensate the loyalty given by the Twitch subscribers and the Patreons. So when they come to want to purchase one of the courses, hopefully if they do, then their loyalty would be compensated because of it. So that's all well and good. That's all well and good. However, you then have the challenge of deciding a compensation rule based on the type of Twitch subscriber and the type of Patreon, because of course you've got different tiers of Patreons and different tiers of Twitch subscribers. So you can't have one rule fits them all. So the more I was thinking about this, the more in my head I was thinking about this specification pattern and how this could actually be used quite well to define the types of specifications. Ideally, on the end goal, you would have, when someone selects the course and they go to checkout, there could be an opportunity there to authorize an account against a Patreon account or a Twitch account, either through some sort of API call, or maybe if I just had a list of who was what, and then check the usernames and stuff at that time, and then it would filter through this business logic to work out what kind of discount I can give this user based on the different type of Twitch subscriber and Patreon they are. Right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write this down, because as you can already imagine, this is getting quite big. And if you think of this in just if conditions, this is actually going to get quite messy. And this is actually really important business logic. I can't get this wrong. So I'm just going to create a spec, if I can. If this will let me. New file, please. We're just going to create a markdown file, just to write the specification down, just so that we have something to go through. And also, of course, Patreons and Twitch subscribers, depending on the tiers, they also get different benefits. For example, if you're a Twitch subscriber and if you're a Patreon, you get access to the pro users voice chat channel and also the pro users channel on Discord. If you're an early access Patreon, you get access to my videos earlier before anybody else does. So there are different, it kind of forks out, it trees out into different benefits. So let's say you are a Twitch. Well, let's the use case. Let's define the use case. So this is go to checkout. Check if user is Twitch subscriber. Check if user is Patreon. Check tier of Twitch and Patreon. And as you can see, it's sort of growing. And, in the future, there could be more. So go to checkout. And then, so Twitch, Patreon. So we have pro user channel. We have pro user. We have town hall. Sorry. And this is all levels, all tiers. T-I-E-R. Yeah. And then we have Patreons. I'm spelling Patreons the Patreon way rather than the actual Patreon way. So this, we have the early access, or we have pro user channel, and we also have the town hall. Now, this has 2 tiers. This has 3 tiers. And what I would also like to offer is, whoops, discounts on courses based on tier. And, you know, there could be another specification based on tier and duration of subscription. You know, so if the longer you've subscribed, the more discount one could get. And then here on Patreon we have we're just going to do it for the early access tier. So early access tier, can't spell tier, has discount. So discount on all tiers, but discount rate is based on tier. All right, and then here we have the early access tier has the discount. So up here we have I guess you would call it the spec. So the user would, excuse me, the user would go to checkout. At some point, at this point, that it would check whether the user is a Twitch subscriber, and also check if the user is a Patreon, and then check the tier based on there. Now, what happens? Let's talk about the edge case. What happens if the user is a Twitch subscriber and a Patreon? Well, I have to take that into account too, right? So let's do a check for both Twitch and Patreon, just to remind me. Okay, so how do we write this in code? Well, let's start by working on an entity. So let's start by having the let's do user. So this is going to be we'll get the, let's just grab that namespace and and all of those things. So this is behavior, this is specification, which I can't spell. Specification. There we go. We don't need those. We don't need this. Not yet. We need the user, obviously. And this user is going to have, it doesn't extend anything yet. This is the concrete class. This is the thing that we need to check against the specification. This is the model, essentially, the model layer. So what we can do is here we could do, we could either do on and off switches, like is Twitch subscriber, is Patreon. However, we then have the tiers in which we need to go down. So we're going to have another class, another model, and we're going to call this Twitch user, or not Twitch user, that's probably a bad way of calling it, Twitch profile. And in this profile, Twitch profile, we're going to have a private is subscribed. That's going to be false. And that's going to be a Boolean. Okay. Then we're going to have a private tier. And this is going to be, for now, we're just going to have a string for now. And then we're going to have a public function is subscribed. In fact, well, there's no need for that, is there? it's either going to be a blank string. Well, I mean, it's either going to be null or something. So is subscribed. If this tier, in fact, that tier can go null to start with. So if null, and we can return that, can't we? So return if not null, then that's true. Okay, so that returns a Boolean. Awesome. And then here we can do get tier. And this is going to return the tier. And that's going to be a string. Can I do that? Am I running off of PHP 7.4? No. Have I got PHP 7.4? Thank you. Too many versions of PHP. All right, so we have this here, private string tier, public function is subscribed, and then we have the get tier. Looking good. Okay, so that's the Twitch profile. Let's create one for the Patreon profile. In fact, it's going to be very similar. Oops. Patreon profile. It's pretty much going to be like that, to be honest. And really, I could probably make this a little bit more user-friendly and less duplicated, but I just want to focus on this specification pattern for now. So we got these two things, and what we're going to do is we're going to inject them in. So let's do public function construct, and we're going to have a private Twitch profile, private Patreon profile. And we'll inject them in. Bit of dependency injection here. This Twitch. Let me get some tunes on. That would be nice, wouldn't it? There we go. Saves listening to my voice all the time. This is the morning. It's a chilled morning. So Twitch profile is equal to Twitch profile. This Patreon profile is equal to Patreon profile. Marvelous. Okay, groovy. So that's that set up. If I was to do a view, and if we just copied the view from here, for instance, obviously I need to change a lot of it if I can. So here. In the view, let's remove all of these things. So this is user specification that I can't spell. Specification. There we go. So we're going to create some new users. So we're going to do, let's just create myself a user. Peter is equal to a new user. Can I find the user from here, please. Specification user. There we go. Now, this user obviously needs to have a Twitch. A Twitch profile. And we also need to have a Patreon profile. Groovy. Let's pass in some injection into here. So with the Twitch profile, we want to have we want to do a public function construct, and in here we have tier. So this again is just going to be a string for now. I mean, it'll be a lot more beefier than this, obviously, in the real world. But let's do this. Tier is equal to tier, and obviously this is nullable. And we'll do the same thing as well for the Patreon profile. Okay. So, just by setting these up on the user here. No, sorry. I'm going backwards and forwards in the index. We can then supply Twitch and Patreon to here. Like that. And on the tier, we can do, let's do tier, let's just make up these tiers. Tier 1. And then here, we can do tier 2. Okay, so that wires up the user against the Patreons and the Twitch profiles, but now I want to get to checkout. All right, I now want to get to checkout. And I want to work out whether or not these users have a particular tier that match this specification. So check if the user is a Twitch subscriber, check if a user is a Patreon, check the tier of the Twitch and Patreon, check if both Twitch and check for both Twitch and Patreon. And then based on this, we can then see what is offered. Okay, so let's go and create the specs. Let's go and start writing this code. So, what we want to do is we want to create an interface first of the specification that we want to, that all the specifications need to adhere to. So we're going to do specification interface. And the specification interface needs to have, you need to pass it the thing that you want to check, right? And it needs to have a function called isSatisfiedBy, passing in the item. I have gone and spelt specification wrong for the billionth time this morning. Specification with another I. There we go. I'm always missing off that I. Yes, refactor it, please. Thank you. So what we need to do is we need to have a public function is satisfied by, all right? And we're passing in, at this point, we're passing in the user. And it's going to return a Boolean. Okay, so all of our specifications need to adhere to that. Okay. So, let's create our first rule, right? So the first rule, we go back to the spec here. The first rule is to check that the user is a subscriber, right, of Twitch. So we'll excuse me. So what we need to do is we need to have Twitch specification. Twitch there we go. Twitch specification. Now this Twitch specification is going to be extending, will implement the Twitch, that will, get my words out, will implement the specification interface. Yikes. Implements specification interface, which means that we need to have a is satisfied by. So we passed in the user, and what we can do is we can do return user. Why is this not coming out as hang on, what have I missed? What haven't I wired up? Let's go back to the user here. Oh yeah. It would help if I wire up the getters here. So let's do get. Well, I'll tell you what I could do is just create getters and setters. Let's just do getters rather than setters for now. There we go. So here we do return user get Twitch profile is subscribed. So that's going to return true if that is the case. We also want to have another specification for Patreons as well. So we're going to copy that, we're going to paste that in, and we're going to have Patreon specification. And this is going to be get Patreon profile is subscribed. Boom. Okie dokie. So now we have our two rules as to whether or not it is if there is a Twitch subscriber, this and a Patreon. So that covers these two rules. Okay. So I'm going to put in done. All right. Okay, now we need to check the tiers. The tiers. Not the tears you cry, the tiers of the actual subscription status. Okay. So what we can do is we can inject these rules. If you think of these as configuration, so perhaps one day I decide to change the types of tiers of these things. We can inject these in. So, for example, and I guess this really only matters for the Patreons, because the Patreon here, early access tier has a discount, but not for the first tier. So if we were to do, let's do tier 1. Tier 1 is equal to supporter. Tier 2 is equal to early access. All right. So tier 2 has discount, but tier 1 does not. Okay. Now I might change that in the future, right? I mean, I'm talking about this in the sense that it's already there. It's not, you know. I might want to have more than 2 tiers eventually. This is what the joy of this specification pan. It allows you to create more specifications. So let's work on the Patreons. So I'm going to inject this. I'm going to do public function construct, and we're going to have tier discount or tiers. tiers, or discounted tiers. There we go. So discounts, discounted tiers, and we're gonna pass in an array of tiers. And whoops, and we'll do this tiers is equal to discounted tiers. Okay, so now we can change this, right? Because we're saying that it is subscribed, but there is the opportunity that there is a yeah, it's a little bit too yo-yo. I think what I'm going to do is create my own playlist and have these in. Nobody needs that at this time of morning. Come on. I've literally just woken up. So, we have two tiers here, and we want to make sure that they are... if you're in the first tier, you don't get a discount, but if you're in the second tier, you do, okay? So we can't just go, yes, you are subscribed, and therefore you do get discount. We want to actually check that you are in the second tier. So what we can do is we can do if, or we could just do in array tier 1 this user get Patreon profile get tier, and it's not really an array, is it? No, it's if I tell you what, no, let's not complicate this, and let's not have an array yet. Let's set this as just discounted tier as a string. So we won't have this in array malarkey. We won't have that. We'll just say if tier 1, 1, 2, 3 is in there. So return that. There we go. So if tier 1, in fact, if we were to configure it, if this tier let's call it what it is, discounted tier okay, which now means that we can specify which tier allows you to have discount. Okay, that's cool. Now with the Twitch specification, it's just a case of if you are a subscriber, then you are satisfying the specification. All right. Okay. So how do we wire this together? Now, I did say specification has the ability to chain things together, which is what we're going to do here. So what I'm going to do is build another specification, and we're going to call this AND specification. Well, actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have an OR specification, I think. It'll all become clear, I hope. OR specification. Missing the I there, OR specification. Let's grab that over. Now, the OR specification allows you to put two specifications together in an OR sense. Okay, so we're going to do an OR. It's going to implement the specification interface, and we're also going to have a private see. This is if I was to ever own a coffee shop, this is probably the tunes I'd have. I keep saying that we should just buy a coffee shop in Cornwall somewhere and just make everybody teas and coffees every day. That'll be cool. Anyway, enough of that. So this is we're gonna have an array here. Specifications, and this is going to have it's a collection of the specifications that we want to supply. So we're going to do a public function. We're going to create a constructor, and this constructor is going to have the specifications. Okay, we do need to implement the interface here, so we have the is satisfied by. However, what we're going to do is we're going to loop over for each specifications. This specifications as specification, and then we're going to do if because we're doing it as an OR, we need to do if specification is, and really I should do a check, shouldn't I? If instance of, if specification is an instance of specification, then we do, no, specification interface, there we go. We do specification is satisfied by the user, and we have if that is true, then what we do is we return true. Now, because we're doing it as an OR, it means that we have to, loop through the rest of them. We can't just break this. But if we've looped through all of this and none of it is true, then we return false. So there we go. All right. Now, the next thing is we've got ORs. We're going to have ANDs. Okay, we're going to have ANDs. So we're going to have an AND specification. Pretty much the same. However, this is working on the fact that you have to meet all of the specifications that you supply. Excuse me. So, there's my drink. Easy way to do this is just to flip over the operator. So we're looping through all the specifications, checking if there are any interfaces, and then here we do boom, or in the way I like to do it is do false, and then we return false. And then obviously it has to check all the things as it goes through, and then we return true. Okay, so now we have our and our or, which means that we can, based on the spec, we can check whether or not there is one or the other. So this does this, check for both. Okay, so this is now done. And so is this. So let's go and put this all together, shall we? So in our view, what we want to do, that's tier 2, isn't it? We've gone and messed that up, haven't we, on Patreon? That needs to be... Oh, no, I do supply it through. Okay, that's fine, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go and create the specs, shall we? So let's do... let's work on the and spec first. So let's do and spec. Is equal to new and specification. Now with the and specification, we pass in an array of specifications that we want to adhere to. So in this case, we're going to do new Patreon. Come on, I can't spell it. Patreon specification. There we go. And we need to supply the tier. Now I'm going to put in tier 2. And we also need to have another one, which is the good old Twitch specification. And we don't supply anything with that. That's fine. This is now saying that this spec, let's just call this spec, is going to set this up. We're going to apply these as a collection of specifications that we need to check. And so what we can do here is we do spec, come on, is satisfied by, and you pass in the user. And what that's going to do is it's going to go, okay, hang on a minute, user being me, sorry. So is satisfied by, you're going to go spec is satisfied by, and you're passing in the user. It's looping through all the specifications that you've just put through here. And we're going to check whether the specification is not satisfied. And if it's not, then we return false. If it is, then we continue on looping through the rest of the specifications until we get to the end of them. If none of them have returned false, then we return true, and therefore it is satisfied. Your specification has worked. Now, excuse me. Now this is really good because you can now start changing and manipulating the specification order and the different types of specs. And really, on the face of these, the specs themselves are really quite sort of you've boiled it down to the bare essential. Okay, so the Patreon specification doesn't care about the Twitch specification at all. It has no knowledge of it. It's completely closed from that business rule. Same with the Twitch spec. So let's see if we can go ahead and run this. So this is going to return true or false. So we're going to do has discount is equal to there, and we're going to do let's create this a little bit nicer. Let's do private. Let's put in a name, and we'll put in a name up here. So we'll do string name, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bunch of these things with different rules. We won't worry about setters. We'll just worry about getters for now. All right. So when we create in the index here, we need to have the name. We're going to put in here, which means that on the output, I can do echo Peter get name, and then I can do have you got discount ? And we can do a ternary operator here, so we can do has discount . Yes. Woohoo. No. Sad face. Okay. So let's go and run this. I'm going to go to, if I remember rightly, where everything is on this thing. Let's do PHP locals host. We are not in the observer, we're in the specification. Come on. Oh, I'm in the wrong, sorry. Forgive me, I'm in the wrong, SRC. Of course, I've changed the, darn it, I've changed the folder structure, haven't I? So this is in code. ls src, there we go. And it's not sections, it's behavioral, there we go, and it's specification view. That's where we want to go. Okay, cool. I'm gonna put this as PHP -s to bring up the local server. We're gonna do this on localhost. We're gonna run it off of port 8081 -t. This is our document root, and this goes straight to the view. I think that's correct. Okay, cool. Let's bring this up. Oh, it's all blown up. Okay. Something's wrong with the autoloader. I've got a feeling this doesn't work. Yeah. Let's see. Can I go back a level? Back a level. Oh, it almost had it then. There we go. That should be okay. Let's try it again. Okay, user specification parse error. We have a question mark expecting a T function or const on Twitch profile on line 7. Oh, okay, fine. Is this because the actual Apache is not running in PHP 7.4? Oh dear. Okay, let's bring it back to 7.2. Spoiling my fun, my setup. I will have to tackle bringing this up into PHP 4 land soon. Let's just refresh. I'll probably get a couple of more of these things. Yeah, Patreon profile. Yeah, I need to sort out my machine. It's not PHP 7.4 compatible yet. Line 7. Of course. Let's do it the old-fashioned way with code comments. God, makes me feel like I'm running in the dark ages. Code comments, what are these? Okay, now, and on line 7, and, scroll up, here we go, yes, of course. Whoops. Patreon spec on line 7. Okay, cool. Sweet. So, let's go to the index here. Let's put in some p tags. And we'll put in some There we go. Peter Fisher, do you have discount? Yes, I do. Because we're on tier 1. Sorry, tier 2, and we're supplying that as a tier here. So let's go and change this. Let's do this as tier 1 and change that and keep that to tier 2. Refresh. We now have no. So imagine this was coming in from some sort of configuration file. Maybe it was a JSON file or some other file or even a database, which configures all of these specifications. And yeah, you at checkout, it runs, and whether or not you've got a discount, it then puts that discount onto the order. So let's change this to be an OR. Okay. Again, we're going to put in a loop of the specs, but this time you either have to be a Patreon of tier 2 or you need to be a Twitch subscriber. Now, I'm not a Patreon of tier 2, I'm on tier 1, but I am a Twitch subscriber, which means that this should pass. With a syntax error, of course. On line 7. Here we go. Yes. No, hang on. Yes, because it's an OR. Yeah. Yeah. So, if, for instance, I wasn't if I wasn't any of these, so if I was to put those as nothing and refresh. Oh. Line 21. These are all the problems with the 21. Return value of must be a type of string. Null is returned. Aha. Get tier here needs to be nullable. Of course. There we go. And can we check for the other ones as well? That was Patreon profile. This is where PHP stand would come in useful. Patreon profile and Twitch profile. So that's because that's nullable as well. Okay, cool. So let's also change this to be an and so this should be null, should be no to, and specification. Cool. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so let's go and create a bunch of users with a bunch of different Twitch profile bits and pieces. Okay, so let's create an array of users. So we're going to do, and we'll probably use the factory pattern or something like this. Well, no, let's not mix patterns. Let's do users is, and we have, it's an array of an array where we have the name. I mean, you can imagine at the end of the year or something, I might want to write a report that runs through and just, you know, lets me know the Twitches and the Patreons and their profiles and so forth. Okay, so we have name, we're going to do Patreon tier as a string, and we're going to do Twitch tier. Let's do some constants. Let's do P tier 1 is equal to tier 1. P tier 2 for Patreon tier 2 is tier 2. Again, this would all be held in configuration. And then we would have T1, T2 for level 2, and we would also have T3. Okay, so here we go. So this is P tier 1. This is T tier 1. We're going to create another user. I'm going to make this up. Let's just call this person Lucy. We're going to do tier 2, and we're going to do tier 3. Let's do John, if I can spell it. John's not going to have a Patreon tier. It's just going to be null. Nor are you going to have a Twitch tier. That's going to be null. Let's create another one. Alex. We're going to have a Patreon tier 2. Not going to have a Twitch subscriber. Frank. It'll be the other way. All right. So they're the users. You know, you get the idea. We could put in a whole bunch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to loop through all of these. So we're going to do for each users as let's do user data, and let's do a new Twitch profile and a new Patreon profile. My watch is reminding me that I should get up and walk. Well, I am stood up. I think I will grab a cup of tea in just a mo. Okay, so user data, Twitch profile, and we want to get the Twitch tier. And with Patreons, we want to do the same. And we also want to put in user is equal to new user, passing in the name. Groovy. Okay, so now what we can do is we're going to create an array of users. So we're going to do, let's do user data set up here. Let's call that user data set. And we'll have users is an array of our user objects that we've created. So we have users. There we go. Okay, so now let's say we are running a report. So let's run a report. Run a report. And this report is going to loop through and check who is who. All right. So we're going to do a for each users as user. And we're going to create this specification like this. And we're going to say we're going to create a spec, and this is going to be an and spec, and we're going to do this. And we're also going to put this through here. Okay, let's see if we can run that report. Okay, so I don't have discount. Lucy has discount. John doesn't have discount. Nor does Alex, nor does Frank. Okay? Because we're running off of an and specification. They must have both Patreon and Twitch for this to work. Let's do an or specification because the and is a little bit brutal. Oops, sorry. Have I spelt specification wrong on the or? No. Just doesn't seem to be... Scroll up here, or specification. I must have just removed it. Okay. Okay, so here it's a little bit more favorable. We do have, Peter does have discount. Lucy does have discount. John still doesn't have discount. Alex and Frank do have discount. Okay. Let's change that to tier 1. Now we've removed some. Now that doesn't make sense, does it? If we're checking for the first tier, because if you think about it in tiers, it needs to be at least tier 1, or at least tier 2 or what have you. So if you've got tier 2 and the Patreon specification is that you need to be tier 1, then that should be included as well. So that won't work. So let's do tier 2. And I tell you what I could probably get away with is putting this as the... There we go, the P tier. That should work. Cool. Okay, so that's the specification pattern in a nutshell, really. You create these lovely little small, tight specs that return true or false as a Boolean, and you have a collection. Well, you don't have to, of course, you don't have to have these collections, but you can do if you want to chain them together. And you have an interface, which is the specification interface, that has the is satisfied by, and if you are using a collection, so if you're doing and or, then you would loop over the specification collection that you've injected, and then what you would do is you would check the is satisfied by based on the specification that you're checking against. Obviously, the difference between the and the or is the operators here. So with the or, what we're doing is we're looping through all the things, and if everything is true, so if that is true, then we return true. Okay, not everything, sorry. So if one thing is true, then that's true. Then this is satisfied as true. We return true. Because it can either be one or the other, right? Or it could be all of them together. But as soon as one is true, then that's returned. If none of them are true, then we return false. This flips it on its head if we go to the and specification. Because what we're doing here is they must all be true. So we loop through all of them, all the specifications, and they must all be true, which means that here we can check that if it's false, then we return false. If all of them are true, then we return true. If we come out of all of this and we haven't returned false yet, we return true. So we have the Patreon spec here. It's a little bit more complicated than the Twitch spec, because here what we're doing is we're passing in a tier that we want to check against. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this could be a little bit more complicated, because we could say, well, if you're a tier 2, if there's 3 tiers, and we need to say that anything from tier 2 upwards allows you discount. So so not including tier 1, then we would put in tier 2 here as a starting point. So then it would have some knowledge that tier 3 is above tier 2, and therefore tier 3 gets it too. I also mentioned in the spec that there is different types of things here. So for example, with the Twitch, all tiers get the pro user channel and the town hall and the discounts, but with Patreons you don't. Only tier 2s, the early access, you get the early access and the pro user channel and the town hall. Tier 1 doesn't. So I think I'm gonna grab some tea, and then when I come back, I'm going to work through the early access bits and pieces. So I'm gonna grab some tea. I'll be back very, very shortly. I'll speak to you all very, very soon.
Fuck remote controller, man. What the fuck, nigga? It's PlayStation music. That's the mixtape PlayStation music. 1110 music. Yeah. Well, yeah. Look. You rap niggas is orphans. That's about an abortion. My all-time greatest like Serena and Jordan. And the rhymes is mean and pristine like libraries. Bitches keep playing. What I think marrying, but I'm thinking gazing. Bitch, you so crazy. Fully coolly is that king, and I do that thing, and I'm cold. Walking on the clouds, walking on the moon. Goddamn, I saw hair strong like Samson. Goddamn, bring me Samson. I wanna smoke weed, wanna get high with my drink, please don't think. Girl at the girl, pearl at the pearl, look, diamond at the diamond, look, choke it like a hammer, and I cool, and them motherfuckers know my rhyme be off the top, they can't stop my flow. Fully coolly, that dude, I'm the king. Cooper nigga, what the fuck you sing? Mugging me just like a junkyard dog, and I kill these nigga, who the fuck is y'all? Flexing harvest like Lex Luger, pulling up nigga with a big Ruger. Yeah.
What you eating, bro? Straight bread. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So, okay. I think what I'm going to do, which would round this off quite nicely, is some unit tests. And then I could draw a line under this. Not saying it's not implying that it's frustrating at all, but I would like to get this tested as part of the course. I think that would be a good idea. And then, if we have time, we'll then implement these. It's just I would like to get to a point where I can say that in this stream I've done the specification pattern. And we don't have long. So we're going to do a specification test. Okay, so I'm going to grab the observer test. I'm going to just put it in here as we're going to do user test first up. Let's just remove all those. Test, create user. That'll do. That'll do, donkey. That'll do. User is equal to new user. And we need to supply the name. So we're going to do, let's do Alex. Let's do a new Twitch profile. And let's do a new Patreon profile. Let's do assert that Alex is the name. So test, we're going to do test create user defaults. So this is user get name. We also want to make sure that we do this user get Patreon profile is subscribed. We want to make sure that that is false. Sorry, no. And we also want to do get, oops, Twitch profile is subscribed false. Okay, so that's cool. Let's run this test. Marvelous, it works. Yeah, that's PHP 7.3 I'm running. Let's create another test. It's not for the user though. Let's create one specifically for the Patreon test. It's Patreon profile test, isn't it? Really? Profile test. So this is new Patreon. Passing in the tier, we're going to do tier 1. This is going to be assert true that Patreon profile is subscribed. Okay. Similar thing now for the Twitch. I'm just going to put in test profile, I think, rather than test Patreon profile. Cool. Groovy. Okay, so let's run this. All good. Run that. All good. Cool. Okay, let's now put in the specs. So this is let's do and specification test. I can't spell specification. Needs an extra I, an I, an I, an I after the F. And that still isn't spelled right. Specification. There we go. Okay. So this is new Patreon spec and new Twitch spec. We need to put in this as tier 1 or tier 2. And we also need to have a user equal to new. John is the name. And we're going to have new essentially this is doing everything I've done before, so this is going to be assert true spec is satisfied by the user. Okay, so we need, with the user we have, it's Twitch first, beg your pardon. Let me just change the tunes.
Following others' roads to destinations where no.
I ask you about love. Probably quote me a sonnet. You've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable. Oh my God, put an angel on earth just for you. Could rescue you from the depths of hell, and you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel.
Twitch specification. Oh, of course. Ah, it's a Twitch profile. Sorry. And then this is the Patreon profile. Of course it is. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so we have a Patreon and we have a Twitch, but this is at tier 2 and this is at tier 1, which means that this is going to return false because we're doing it on an AND spec. Test profile. Don't meet. Don't profiles not satisfied. So that should return true, well, false. Let's run that. Yep, that's cool, which means that we can test the other side. So we do profiles are satisfied. So let's change that to be tier 2 and run that, and that should be, let's run it again. Let's run this. This should fail. Hang on. Whoa. That should have passed, should it not? Running on an AND spec. Why is that? Because that's... So if that was tier 1... Hang on, I'm getting confused. Why is that running all the time? Tier 10? That's not right. Which is why we have these tests. Patreon specification. We're passing in the discounted tier. So if the discounted tier is equal to get Patreon get tier, then that should be returning true. So why in this test is it not? And specification. Patreon profile, passing in the tier. That is running. Let's see. Let's see if we can write a test for the specific profiles. So let's do here, let's test. Profile tier. I'm going to do profile 10, and so this is asset same Patreon profile get tier. This should be tier 10. So that's running, that's fine. Okay. So, and spec, Patreon, Twitch. Okay, one test, one assertion. Something isn't wired up right. Check that too. I mean, I know it's okay, but we'll just put it down for belt and braces. I'm saying I'm at tier 2, and I'm saying the specification requires tier 10. And And this should be false. Oh, hang on a minute. Excuse me. Hold on. That should fail. It is. So we want to make sure that this returns false. Oh, sorry, Aaron. We want to make sure that this returns true because this is satisfied. So that needs to be correct. Tier 2 and Tier 2 is satisfied, but it's returning false. Failed, asserting that false is true. Okay. For each specification as specification. If the specification is an instance of specification interface, then if the specification is not satisfied, then we return false. So what we can do is work through these individually. So let's do without the and, let's just create a new spec. Spec is a new Patreon spec. And we do is satisfied by user. So that's true. That's working okay. Interesting.
Hi. Subscribe. Yes. Yes. Just press the button.
Twitch.
Eh? Subscribe. Or else.
Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like.
A little confused here.
They quote me a song.
A little confused, I think.
To the woman who lived totally wrong. You, oh my God, put an angel on earth just for you. Could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel.
So that should, I mean, obviously that's going to return. New Twitch specification. That is the thing that's failing, isn't it? It's the Twitch spec. Ah, okay. Oh, hang on a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's because I haven't even put in a tier. That's why. Jeez Louise. Crikey. So that should run now. Which means that if we go up to the top here, where this is failing, I need to put in a tier. I need to put in a tier. Of course I do. Ah, dear. Not, hang on. No. Not on there. We need to put in a tier on... This is what happens when I don't have enough T. There we go. It needs to go in there, doesn't it? There we go. Now it's passed. Awesome. Okay. Can I run this with code coverage, please? Let's run the tests. Oh, I think I need to... Oh, hang on. Cannot redeclare. Oh dear. Because the name is already in use. Rats. Okay. Let's do user profile test rather than user test. I think what I need to do is create namespaces for my units, for my tests. Okay, what's going on here? So this is something else. This is application test. On line 44, must be compatible with declaration of... Huh? Okay, maybe if we run the tests from here. There we go. Okay, so we have 120 tests. They've all passed. I want to run these with code coverage if I can. Are you going to give me coverage? It seems to have ran it with coverage. Can I see the coverage? It's going to be hidden somewhere, isn't it? Window, help, code, cover, show code coverage data. 15th, 21. Oh, so no coverage was actually, if I did that, show selected. There we go. So that, but that was an old one, I think. Okay, replace active suites. No, that hasn't happened. Maybe something has gone a bit awry with my version of PHP Storm here. I'm sure I had code coverage running beforehand. Come on, help. And that's saying 0%, so something's gone a bit screwed. Code coverage. Do you want to display code coverage for the tests? Yes. Replace active suites, add to active suites. Add to active suites, please. No cover. ID sync is disabled. Current inspection profile. Test history. Restore default layout. No. That's empty. I don't know. That's bizarre. As far as I'm aware, I haven't changed, and it looks like it's ran with coverage on. Let me think. What could have changed? I changed the path of various things, so it could be that. Yes, we no longer have sections now, do we? That's probably why. Let's go and tidy this up. And I think we can also remove that as well, I think. SRC tests, yeah. And sorry, we'll run it from here. There we go. Yeah, I had my paths wrong. All right, so 99% of the files, 94% of the lines. Bring this out a little bit. Okay, so in specification, we have reached 85% files and 82% lines. Just out of interest, which are the ones that are lacking in various things? So obviously that's fine. That's 100%, that's 100%, or specification. Ah, yes, of course. Let's write a test for that quickly. So let's go to behavioral. And let's go to tests, behavioral, specification. We're going to grab that, paste it in here, set this to be OR with a lowercase r. That would be nice. Cool. So we can get rid of all of this stuff because this is just testing the other bits and pieces. So here we have profiles, test profiles satisfied. So we have Patreon and Twitch. We're going to put this down to 1, but this needs to be true because it's OR. So this gentleman here has tier 2, but it requires, let's do tier 2 here, but has tier 1, but it requires tier 2, but they are also a Twitch subscriber. So if I put in tier 1 on the Twitch sub, so this should hopefully pass, which it does. So let's run all this again with code coverage. We're now at 121 tests. If we go to the code, go to SRC, go to behavioral, go to specification, we're now at 100% files, 198% lines. That is done at 88% out of interest. Why is that not? Oh yeah, because of the return false. I haven't checked for that. But I think that's all right. I think we're good. I think we're good. So I'm pretty stoked with that. I'm pretty happy that we've got to that point. Excellent. So that is that's the specification pattern. It allows you to create nice, well-defined specifications for various business rules to adhere to. And as you can see, you can chain these specifications together in whatever order or manner that you want, and they will grow in complexity as the system grows. But as long as you keep to, let's see if I can find one. As long as you keep to a very defined sort of single responsibility of each of these business rules, then that'll be great. So if for instance there was another business rule to be added to say the Twitch subs, right? Then what I would do is I would create another class of a specification of that, and then in the view I would add that to the specification collection. As long as they all follow the interface of is satisfied by, and that returns a boolean, then it's all good. So yeah, and I'll probably do something a little bit similar to this when we actually get to the point of doing this on the howtocodewell.net site itself. It's in my mind as a way of rewarding the subscribers, Twitch and Patreon. You know, I want to create a platform where people can learn to code, and you know, it's going to be a paid-for platform, and I know that there are an audience of Patreons and Twitch subscribers already, and I want to discount them. I want to compensate them for their loyalty. which I think is going to be cool. And this is probably how I would do it. Anyway, I need to dive off because I got to get on with some work, unfortunately. Today, I'm working on Vue.js. I'm working on a CSV export, and it's and other various bits and pieces as well, which is going to be fun. Anyway, I will speak to you again soon. Happy coding, everyone. Take care. Have a good day. And I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.